Oops, that's too loud. What is it? 2012 Jeep Patriot. It's got 141K on it. The lady left a note here. Let's get this plugged in because it sounds like we're going to need this little guy. Because apparently the car quits. Can't find the plugger here. And runs like poo and RPMs drop off. Something or other there. Let's see. And she writes, engine light on while driving, stability light comes on, RPMs drop and no throttle, have to shut off car, let it sit, start again. Love always. Can't read the name. But anyhow, sounds like it has some issues. Don't we all? It runs, so that's a good start. Let me get up in this joint. Oh, she's short, little girl. I'm gonna have to scooch it. Oh, she's a manual seat. That's good. Those ones don't usually break. Engine light is on. Passes the rev up tune up. I'll let it get hooked up here and we'll see what this thing says, what part we need to change, and then we'll go from there, right? Because isn't that what these computers do? He's almost done. Here we go. At least it's not all a bunch of codes in here. It says we need to replace the crank sensor and we need to replace the torque signal sensor. Just kidding, folks. Intermittent crank signal and torque request signal denied. ABS light's coming on because the engine light's coming on is what that means. But crank intermittent. That's interesting. So let's pop back in. We're going to go right into the ECM and see if we have some kind of data there that would coincide with what she says about the... Oh, it just did it. Just sitting here, it just did it. I don't know if you guys heard it, but I wasn't touching anything. But yeah, the RPMs dropped right off, and I was just gonna say that would go with what she was saying about the RPMs dropping off. So let's see. I don't know what we... Oh, it just did it again. We might not even have to drive it. We might not even have to go get stranded. Crank signal missing faults. In sync. That was a great band, wasn't it? Not really. Crank system fault in mode. I don't know if we have a yeah, no, we can't graph that to catch it. Let's see if we're going to want to bring up the RPMs. Nope. We want engine speed, engine runtime, engine speed. Okay, so what we'll do, we'll set that at 0, and we'll put that at about 6,000. And then I'm wondering if we should take it for a rip to see if any of this changes, because that would be helpful to know, but it sounds like it probably does. I don't want to get stranded, but I am going to take it for a little toot. Just because sometimes you can gather useful information on your tune around town, like if it, you know, acts up primarily while it's being engine torqued, or if it's just completely random. Yeah, we better hit the side streets here. We don't want to get stuck downtown with all that traffic. Not worried about the wheel bearings, huh? It's pretty noisy. Alright, let's see. We'll head this way here. Well, we're going to give her some beans. Wow, this thing does not sound like it has a single wheel bearing that is any good. Might be worthy to know. Oh, it just did a little hitch in its giddy up. We can see it right there on the RPM display. There's a pigeon. Got your classic black ice, in case you haven't noticed. Let me put on my seatbelt, stand by. Alright, here we go. Hammer down. Whoa. Oh, she's a little jerky. So, yeah, you can see a couple little blips right there. wheel bearings are really bad. Okay, so I don't think we need to go really much further. We'll go up here and turn around. It definitely is acting up and skipping and bucking. Oh, it's dead right now. Look at that. So the car just died. Completely shut off on us. So, are we in limp home mode? True, it says. So let's pull over here in case we need to call a tow truck. Oh, we got no more power steering. Hold on, folks. Flip it around. Don't hit the mud puddle too hard. There we go. And there we are. At a dead end. How appropriate. Let's put it in the park. Oh, don't you be nasty to me. Oh, you're a good girl. That's right. All right, well, it did what it had to do. She wasn't lying. I'd want it fixed too. Stayed running, so that's interesting. I think we'll go, if you can hear me over the wheel bearings, we'll go right for the crank sensor and see what we're missing. 5 volts, ground, signal, something going on. What's the signal look like? It's the only thing we can do, and then we're gonna have to probably come drive it to make a determination as to what's wrong. But yeah, I just did it again there, just on a ladle down. Interesting, baby. Perhaps the best thing to do is find out A, how to open the hood. There's probably some way to do that. B, we need to find out where this sensor lives. I'm sure it's probably been replaced. Typically before cars end up at my shop, they're at other shops. And they change the parts that the computer says to. What letter we're on, C or D? We're gonna have to see if there's any service bulletins by Chrysler, PCM updates, anything that pertain to what we're looking at. And then F, if there's not, we'll go on with our regular testing methods. Just seeing if there was any mice in here or anything. So let's, well, that's not gonna stick back. We're gonna put a little lube on that, but we'll leave that off for right now. Let's find out where, and we're gonna have to be able to get to the battery negative, I'm sure. So we'll take this thing off. So that's this. So let's do that. Let's find out where this thing lives. Let's see if it's new, which it probably is. And then visual inspection, service bulletins, things like that. And then we'll come up with a plan. Well, this baby's gonna need a belt too. Belt and bearings. As we suspected, folks, I look back here. Let's see if I can find it for you guys in the mirror. Where is my mirror? You can see, so that's the crank sensor there. So I'm looking, coming in the engine, looking down past the heater core hoses, and we can see the crank sensor there. Now, typically we wouldn't be able to see this just using a mirror and a light because there's a heat shield that covers it, but I can see also in the mirror. This thing probably won't focus on that. You can see, hopefully, that the heat shield there, you see how it's kind of bent and probably just yanked back out of the way. So somebody's definitely been in there already. Instead of taking the heat shield off, they just, yanked it back out of the way. So I assume that the crank sensor's been replaced. Looks like it's kind of a pisser to get to. I was looking on service data, and they were saying to take the air box off and then to get to that heat shield, but that's why he said, I was like, well, let's look back there with a mirror. Sure as heck somebody's been there. I'd like to get to the connector to disconnect it to make sure the pin fitment's good. And if it is, then I guess we're just going to carry on our testing. No service bulletins or anything that I saw. Sorry folks, I was talking to a customer there. Let me set this down. So didn't want to waste time. So I was hooking this up while I was chit-chatting. I've got a diagram here for the Jeep. I've hooked into the PCM because it's easier to get to. Plus, it's the last place the signal needs to make it. We have 3 wires, 3-wire sensor, Hall effect sensor. So we have our 5 volts, our signal, and our sensor ground. And that's where I have these hooked up, and I have them running inside into the scope so we can take it for a shake and just see what's happening. So we should be good now. Let's see here. So I labeled the channels for you. So our blue is our crank signal, red is our 5-volt ref, and green is our ground. Now, some people are going to be commenting on the spikes and stuff there. Pretty common to have noise. Our wires are laying right across 4 ignition coils, so we're going to see, you know, some of these ignition events just being absorbed through our scope cables. I think at this point we just need to take it for a drive and catch it in the act and see what's happening. Are we losing signal? Are we losing the ground? Are we losing the 5-volt reference? I'm going to put a little more time on the screen. It makes it easier for me to capture it. So we'll go like this. So I'll make sure I can pause it. I can start it. So we're good. I know it looks a little fuzzy and a little messed up right now, but I don't think we need any more than what we have there. I think we're in good shape. So let's rock and roll. All right, we'll go out on the big road and we'll hammer down, because it seemed to do it around between 4 and 6,000 RPMs, relatively consistent there. I don't think we need any scan data, so watch stupid thing, probably won't do it now. I did disconnect the connector on the crank and it was nice and clean. Nothing looked funky, tabs not broke, nothing like that. So I don't know if you guys heard of that. Let me shut this back in park. It did get kind of funky on us just a couple, 3 times there. I enhance each time when it did it on the picoscope, and I don't see anything funky. I mean, our signals get a little funky, almost like it's putting the crank signal back in through the power and ground. I mean, you can see here it just gets funky, I guess, for lack of a better term. It doesn't just go away. Our signal doesn't disappear. Our 5-volt and our ground gets a little hatchy there, for lack of a better term. But that's all it does. I was kind of expecting the signal, our actual crank signal itself, to just disappear. I looked at it in all 3 spots where it jerked and bucked, and that's all it did. So that's interesting. I guess I don't have an answer for you right now. I was half expecting to see the signal disappear, but you can see the discrepancy there, big picture looking at this. So that's kind of bizarre, huh? We're not losing ground, we're not losing our 5-volt. The signal gets a little choppy. We know Chryslers in general are quite fussy with what brand sensor you put in them, so I don't know if perhaps this is some kind of aftermarket mumbo jumbo that's happening to it. It's kind of weird. I'm going to drive it a little bit more, just because I want to see, if we can get a big event. Right, so far right now it's just jerking and bucking like it was initial test drive. So I'm going to take it for another shake, and we'll see if anything changes. But I mean, overall, just looking at it, I mean, everything looks good. When it works good, it seems to be nice square waves. So I don't have an answer for you on that one, but we're gonna keep going here for just a little bit, and then I'm probably just gonna order an OEM sensor for it just to be on the safe side, so we know where we're starting. This is a pretty good one. And we sit. She just died on me. I paused it, and oddly enough, so the Tach, this speedometer was still going, the Tach dropped off to nothing, and I'm just coasting along, and I still have crank signal right up until the point where I pulled over, and then I guess the engine quit rotating finally. But let's go back to the moment in which it died. It was jerking and bucking through here, and then I got to the point here where we can see our noise quit. Therefore, the injectors quit injecting and the spark quit sparkling. And at that point, at that very moment, I don't think we lost crank signal, and we didn't. We did not lose crank signal. That is, you know, yeah, there is some noise there. Don't get too distracted by that. But the crank signal kept cranking. All the way until it didn't. This is the part that kind of perplexes me. So I mean, right here I'm just coasting. You can see there's no injectors. Kind of enhance on this a little bit. See, this here is another moment in time in which it was bucking, and you can see it emits the same type of noise on the power and ground. Crank signal looks a little funky. I don't really have an answer, folks. I do know from experience that Chryslers are cray-cray about using OEM sensors. And I've ran across some anomalies with them on their crank sensors, on various Chryslers, where I don't have an explanation, where I look at the signal and the signal looks mint. You know, it looks just this perfect 0 to 5 volt square wave. You know, in this case, it looks like it's probably a 58 tooth sensor, or 58 tooth signal minus 2 teeth. And you know, you sit there and you look at them, you analyze them, and man, they look spectacular. And you don't have an explanation other than you put an OEM in it and all the problems are solved. So I'm not going to get upside down in this thing just yet. I do have to see if it starts. Let's see what happens here on startup. Okay, perfect startup. Classic. Okay, let's head back to the shop before we get stranded. You know what? Here, let's check this. So right now it's not starting, but it appears to have good crank signal. So that's pretty bizarre, right? It wants a key cycle, so this is definitely PCM logic, because it doesn't want to start right now. See, I'll hit the key again. Even though, let's pause it and shut the key off. Even though we have crank signal, obviously. And we're going to see this amplitude change because, you know, because of the starter motor. So yeah, because now it should start because I've shut the key off. So that's, you know, some kind of PCM logic. It doesn't allow it to restart after this event. All right, I think we have enough data. Let's try to make it back here without getting run over. I'm not sure what to tell you. I'm going to see if we can get an OEM sensor just so we know we're not battling that. And that is not based on anything other than experience and previous, you know, failures and repairs here with Chrysler. So I'm not even going to pull it back inside. I'm going to go in. We're going to call the Chrysler dealer, see if they have one of these crank sensors in stock, and then we'll call Napper, see if they can go pick it up for us. Because I don't have an explanation right now. Perhaps some of you guys have had that problems, like, you know, the 4 liters were notorious for erroneous misfires. I've done some videos on them where I've actually taken scope captures, engine lights sitting there just flashing, showing misfires. It's going all over the place. We look at the scope capture and it looks exactly like the OEM sensor, but for whatever reason the PCM doesn't like it. I'm not a computer guy, so I don't know, you know, the whole ins and outs and mumbo jumbo computer garbage as to why it looks good but it doesn't like it. Way above my pay grade. I could be barking up the wrong tree, but I don't want to be led astray by some aftermarket sensor. Perhaps the original was bad. They stuck in a aftermarket and now have this problem. That I don't know. But that's what we're going to do, because we're not going to get upside down in this. Right, you guys are lucky. You get to skip all the waiting. Here's the crank sensor I took out of it. It does appear to just be some, you know, aftermarket Chinesium. I don't know if the numbers mean anything there. Fortunately for us, the local Chrysler garage did have one. Echo in Mexico So here's this one. So I'm gonna get that in. No sense in recording it. It's kind of a bastard to do. You stick your hand down here and then you use one of these mirror so you can see where we're at. Like you can see, you know, the crank where it goes, the opening. And then to get to the bolt I used, you know, just a long extension, but it is a bit of a pisser. I assume it's probably more difficult IRL if somebody hasn't been there because of that shield that's on there, which fortunately for us, somebody already smashed it all out of the way. So I think typically you would take that heat shield off to make life easy, but we're not doing it that way because, you know, somebody already destroyed it. So that's kind of the nice part about having these vehicles come from other shops is most of them are hacks, and then we, you know, we don't have to do the dirty deed of, you know, taking it apart the right way. Oh, what a pain in my hoo-hoo. Let's see if it runs, hopefully. Okay, so it starts and runs. The other thing we need to do now, let me get you situated. We need to erase codes. And I don't know if there's any cam crank correlation, relearn, anything like that we need to do. So we'll check special functions. Let's see, cam crank relearn. There's that. Check PCM VIN. Okay. I guess that would be it. We did change setting cam. Please start the engine. Let me see here. Check. Temperature must be above 70 degrees C. We're only at 58 C, so I'll let her warm up here and we'll try again. Everything on this scale still looks the same. You know, no change there. So we'll just wait for this to warm up. I don't know if once it hits 70 if it will automatically start the process. Well, I guess that's good. And we'll just make sure that we have no codes, which we shouldn't have. And then I guess the moment of truth, we'll set that baby down because I don't think we need to see anything data-wise. Let me put my seatbelt on. Alright, here we go. Hopefully that was it and we're not some big complicated diag. Nobody likes complicated. And hopefully we can sell this lady, you know, 4-wheel bearings. Not that I'm a big upsell guy. So far, so good. It was pretty persistent before, so I don't think we're going to have a problem duplicating and or not duplicating it. Anything coming? Don't see anything. You ready? Let's hammer down. This is where it left us walking before. A miss. So that's good. And we'll slow down again. We'll give her the beans one more time. Like I say, it was pretty persistent. Well, you guys were with me. You know. Okay, we'll hammer on it again. The case of the I don't knows, folks. I'm not going to have an answer for you at the end of this video. Some people are going to want to know how I knew what to do. That's because I've been burned. She's working like a charm, folks. I'm confident with it. Not even gonna bother driving anymore. It was pretty persistent from the get-go, so I think this lady will be happy. I'm happy, you're happy. Happy, happy, happy. So that's really that, folks. I don't have any explanation for you as far as why does the OEM work when the aftermarket doesn't. I don't know. But what I do know is I've been burned on it in the past, and I remember my first time coming across something like this, and I learned, you know, my experience from somebody else's experience, who originally got burned by an aftermarket crank sensor on a Chrysler. Well, we may never know. But somebody did. They shared their experience. You put it in your vault, and you don't forget it, because there's times like this when you just know that's the answer, but you don't know why. I know in the past I've taken Chrysler crank sensors. I've taken the image of the aftermarket. I've made a copy of it, made an overlay image, and I've stuck it right over top of the OEM, and I see no difference. It's not biased a certain amount off from ground. They are from 0 to 5 volts, almost precisely. The aftermarkets are also. When you do like some of the Hondas, I know they'll be biased almost a half a volt or 300 millivolts, 300 to 400 millivolts roughly on the OEM sensor, but the aftermarket goes all the way to ground. Is that the difference? I don't know, but that's what I see. These, I've never been able to tell. I'm not the electrical wizard of how internal sensor things work. Why does one Hall effect work and the other one doesn't? I don't know. I don't care. But that's all it is. Put an OEM sensor in it, call it a day, and move on with life. And that's what I got to do. I got to move on with life. We got a bunch of junk out there, a bunch of Chevrolets that need to be fixed. So let's move on. You move on in that comment section. The questions, the comments, the Insta, the Facebook. And just remember, viewers, if I can do it, you can do it. Thanks for watching.